According to the Greek mysteries, the gods gazing down from Mount Olympus repented that they had made man, and I bet you they still do. Discovering the plans of the gods, Prometheus, in whose heart was a great love for struggling humanity, determined to bring to mankind the divine fire which would make the human race immortal, so that not even the gods could destroy it. So Prometheus flew to the home of the sun god, and lighting a tiny reed with the solar fire, he carried it to the children of the earth, warning them that the fire should always be used for the glorification of the gods and the unselfish service of each other. Prometheus, you see, was a tremendous lightning strike. And the myth, the story of Prometheus, is the metaphor of the ancients used to explain what happened because they didn't know anything about lightning or electricity, or, for that matter, much about fire itself. They burned the homes of their enemies. You see, men were thoughtless and unkind. They took the divine fire brought them by Prometheus and used it to destroy one another. They burned the homes of their enemies. Most recently, in Sweden or Switzerland. Before that, in Waco, Texas. I could go on and on and on. And with the aid of heat, they tempered steel, making swords and armor, and used these instruments to kill each other. They grew more selfish and more arrogant, defying the gods, but they could not be destroyed, for they then possessed the sacred fire. So the story goes. For his disobedience, Prometheus, like Lucifer, remember, these are all metaphors for things that man could not understand. For his disobedience, Prometheus, like Lucifer, was chained and placed upon the brow of Mount Caucasus, or some pronounce it Caucasus, there to remain with a vulture gnawing at his liver until a human being should master the sacred fire and become perfect. This prophecy was fulfilled by Hercules, who climbed Mount Caucasus, broke the fetters of Prometheus, and liberated the friend of man who had been in torture for so many ages. And remember, Prometheus really represents Lucifer. Hercules represents the initiate who, as his name implies, partakes of the glory of light. Prometheus is the vehicle of solar energy. The divine fire which he brought to men is a mystic essence in their own natures, which they must redeem and regenerate if they would liberate their own crucified souls from the rock of their base physical natures. Remember what I told you? You see, according to occult philosophy, the sun in reality is a threefold orb, two parts of its nature being invisible. The globe, which we see, is merely the lowest phase of the solar nature and is the body of the demiurgus, or, as the Jews call him, Jehovah, and the Brahmins, Shiva, the sun being symbolized by an equilateral triangle. The three powers of the solar disk are said to be co-equal. The three phases of the sun are called will, wisdom, and action. Will is related to the principle of life, wisdom to the principle of light, and action or friction to the principle of heat. You see, by will, they believe the heavens were created and the eternal life continued in supreme existence. In other words, the creation of the universe came from an original, spontaneous thought, and by desire was swept into action, and by action, friction, and striving the earth was formed, and the physical universe molded by the lords of the fire. The fire mist passed gradually from the molten condition into its present, more orderly state. Thus heaven and nature were formed. But between these two was a great void, for God did not comprehend nature, and nature did not comprehend the deity. The lack of intercourse between these two spheres of consciousness was similar to the condition of paralysis, in which the consciousness realizes the condition of its body, but you see, owing to the lack of nerve connection, is incapable of governing or directing the activities of the body. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, they believe that between life and action there came a mediator, which was called light or intelligence, Prometheus, Lucifer. It matters not what you call it. Light partakes of both life and action. They believe it is the sphere of blending. An intelligence stood between heaven and earth, for through its medium man learned of the existence of his God, and God began his ministrations to the needs of men. And while both life and action were simple substances, light was a compound, for they believed the invisible part of light was of the nature of heaven, and the visible part of the nature of earth. So down through the ages, this light is said to have taken upon itself bodies. And although these bodies have borne witness to that light, the great spiritual truth of the mysteries behind the symbol of the embodied light is that in the soul, they believe, of every creature within whose mind intelligence is born, there dwells a spirit which assumes the nature of this intelligence. And they believe that every truly intelligent man and woman who is working to spread light in the world is Christened or lightened by the actual labor which he or she is seeking to perform. The fact that light, which represents intelligence, partakes of the natures of both God and the earth, is proved, they believe, by the names given to the personifications of this light. For at one time, they were called the sons of men, and at another time, the sons of God.